A story that has just broke earlier part of this week. Malcolm X's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Is suing the CIA and the FBI for the wrongful death of her father. Yes. The family of slain civil rights leader Malcolm X marked on Tuesday the anniversary of his 1965 assassination by announcing plans to sue the agencies, including the CIA, the FBI, the NYPD, and others for $100 million, accusing them of playing a role in his death. Now, two of his daughters, Iyash and Quibila Shabazz, were joined by attorney Ben Crump at a news conference at the site of the former Audubon Ballroom in Upper Manhattan, where Malcolm X was fatally shot at a crowd gathered to hear him speak on February 21st, 1965. For decades, questions have circulated over who was responsible for his death. 3 men were convicted, but 2 were exonerated. We covered that story here a few years ago. After a renewed investigation into the case against them showed the evidence used to gain convictions was shaky and that authorities had held back information. Now, Iyash, the co-administration of her father's estate, filed notices of claim, which is the first step in the process, saying that the agencies conspired with each other and with other individuals and acted and failed to act in a way to bring about the wrongful death of Malcolm X. For years, our family has fought for the truth to come to light, she said at the news conference. We want justice served for our father. Now, emails seeking comment were sent to the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, NYPD's legal department, the Department of Justice, and the NYPD from the Associated Press. They all declined to comment. Now, the attorney, Benjamin Crump, noted that the anniversary date said that ever since then, there's been speculation as to who was involved in the assassination of Malcolm X. And he cited the 2021 exonerations and said that the government agencies, including the Manhattan District Attorney, NYPD, and FBI, had factual evidence, exculpatory evidence, and that they fraudulently concealed from the men who were wrongfully convicted for the assassination of Malcolm X. Asked if he believes government agencies conspired to assassinate Malcolm, Crump said, "This is what we are alleging. Yes, they infiltrated many civil rights organizations." Woo, this is a long time coming, Rev. It's a long, long time coming. 1965.
Okay, let's dissect this a little bit, piece by piece. My first question off the top is, I wonder, is there a statute of limitations on conspiracy?
Oh, yeah.
Conspiracy to not do enough to prevent somebody from getting killed by somebody. That's in essence what this suit is. That they conspired to not do enough, that they knew that something was in the wind and they decided to not do enough to prevent it. Or had something to do
with what was in the wind.
Well, I mean, that would be a different charge. But they're saying that they didn't prevent his death. Those are the words they're using, that they did not prevent his death. So I'm wondering just how much, one, how far the statute of limitations would go on that, and two, if you successfully bring a suit for that, how many other people could sue local police departments for not doing enough to prevent a criminal act happening to someone they know?
Well, I'm sure, like, put it like this, the same thing happened in Martin Luther King and Malcolm X's death, right? All the black police officers in Memphis and New York City who were guarding them, in both cases, were specifically told to go home.
Yeah.
And so that means that in both cases, that at least there is some sort of, because in, I believe it was 1999, a court found that the U.S. government was culpable in some capacity for Martin Luther King's death. In that sense, I think that you might get something similar in the Malcolm X situation.
Yeah. Now, on the King one, what ultimately happened with that?
I know the let me look. I need to look that up really quick, but
But there is a bigger thing here. Bringing the charge that they withheld evidence, exculpatory evidence. This is news akin to me reporting that tomorrow the sun's going to rise. Since our justice system is less about discovering the truth of what happened, wherever that may lead, and it's more about getting a win for both prosecutors and defense attorneys. It's all about getting a win, or as close to a win as you can get. The times when you see prosecutors not trying to get a win is those times when you know they really don't care about what happened. Exhibit A, the death of Trayvon Martin. Mm-hmm. Remember that night when they announced, the verdict?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Remember the press conference that the prosecuting attorneys did that night? Did they look like they had lost the case? Mm. See, when you see prosecutors who just lost looking like they were on the other side, that's when you know they really didn't care about it, because the norm is prosecutors do everything in their power to win. And if that means withholding information that just might make their job more difficult, they don't have a problem with that, because their goal is to win. If it means pursuing one line of inquiry, and to a certain extent the police are the same way. Once they get their nose in a certain direction, everything they look for, they're looking for stuff that confirms what they think.
So as for the MLK situation, okay, a civil suit found the U.S. government guilty in King assassination in 1999. In 1999, Lloyd Jowers and others, including governmental agencies, were tried before Shelby County, Tennessee, 30th Judicial District Circuit Court on the charge of conspiring to kill King. Jowers had been a Memphis police officer and owned Jim's Grill, a local restaurant. Just above it was a rooming house where Ray was alleged to have shot King. On December 8th, 1999, after more than 70 witnesses and 4 weeks of testimony in a civil trial, Coretta Scott King versus Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis jury reached a quick guilty verdict in the wrongful death of the civil rights leader, concluding that Jowers and others conspired to assassinate him on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in 1968. Now, this is what Coretta Scott King had to say. She said, "There is an abundance of evidence of a major high-level conspiracy in the assassination of my husband, Martin Luther King Jr., and the civil court's unanimous verdict has validated our belief. I wholeheartedly applaud the verdict of the jury, and I feel that justice has been well served in their deliberations. The verdict is not only a great victory for my family, but also a great victory for America and the truth itself." The jury was convinced by the extensive evidence that was presented during the trial that in addition to Mr. Jowers, the conspiracy of the mafia, local, state, and federal government agencies were deeply involved in the assassination of my husband. The jury also affirmed the overwhelming evidence that identified someone else, not James Earl Ray, as the shooter, and that Mr. Ray was set up to take the blame. Now, Jowers claimed that the shot that killed Dr. King came from behind his restaurant and named a Memphis cop named Lieutenant Earl Clark as the actual assassin. He further maintained that Ray was not the killer, and he didn't believe that James Earl Ray knowingly participated. What also came to light was that police protection was pulled just before the assassination, and the morning after, Memphis police cleared the bushes at the site where multiple witnesses say the shot came from. Additionally, the police failed to interview witnesses who lived nearby.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
This was in a civil suit, and specific individuals were named as accomplices.
Right.
We're talking murder here, right?
Yes.
Murder has no statute of limitations. Mm-hmm. normally if you're an accomplice to a crime, aren't you considered equally guilty?
Right.
So,
I think this is going to be a civil. This is a civil.
Right. This is a civil suit.
Right.
And
there's a lower burden of proof.
Yeah,
just like with OJ.
That's right. Much lower burden of proof.
Like with OJ. That's why OJ still I think is in Florida because he can't leave Florida.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna take his money if he leaves Florida.
So I don't want to disparage the fine jurors in Shelby County. But if you really want justice in a murder trial, you don't go to a civil suit. Now, if you want money, you go for a civil suit.
Well, and sometimes that's probably the best you're gonna get, especially when you're dealing with the government.
Yeah. In fact, you can't even sue the government in civil court unless they give you permission. But if you're making criminal accusations, these are criminal accusations that they were part of a criminal conspiracy to commit murder. So how did they have this abundance of evidence, and yet this didn't go into a criminal court? So, for anybody that was part of that civil suit, no one was charged with being accessory to murder.
Do you have to have that in a civil case, though? Do you have to have all that in a civil case?
What?
Can't you just show that the government in itself was negligent or covered up evidence and things like that in a civil case? Wouldn't you just be able to show that in a civil case?
That's fine, but again, you're talking about they covered up evidence, except the suit alleged that they were party to it. They were part of a conspiracy to kill him.
It also said
that's murder.
But it says the NYPD, the FBI, had factual evidence, exculpatory evidence that they fraudulently concealed from the men who were wrongfully convicted. So, So they perpetuated fraud. So I mean, they could be held accountable for that.
Well, I don't know. Well, statute of limitations on that. But again, that would tend to get the two guys that were released. And as far as that goes, okay, justice is served. The two guys that were fraudulently convicted as a result of that fraudulent activity got released, and then they got money for, their wrongful conviction. But if they're suing to say beyond that not only did these people have evidence, and because they wanted these two guys to burn for this, they withheld evidence that would have got them released. Well, that's not uncommon with police and prosecutors, but they're suing for more. They're saying that these folk were involved in a plot,
an intricate plot.
Yes. So then that sounds to me like, since the plot was to murder someone, and
cover up, like I said, factual evidence and evidence that would have again gotten who the real murderers were.
Yeah, so they're protecting the murderer, so therefore they are part of the conspiracy that involved a first-degree murder charge, because they're not saying that this was an unplanned killing. They're saying there was a conspiracy.
Right.
That's first-degree murder.
Right.
Which has no statute of limitations.
Right.
So somebody should be being prosecuted right now.
Well, since 1965, you're probably not gonna get. Anybody who would have been directly involved.
Probably dead?
They'd probably be dead.
Okay.
I mean, like Malcolm X was born 1925, so I mean, like, let me see. He would have been. He was 39 when he died.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, they would all be at least 90. Like, if they were his age, anybody involved was his age, they would at least be. 98 years old.
Right. So this is kind of like the Emmett Till situation.
Right. And like I said, they are suing him for $100 million.
Oh yeah.
$100 million.
I can't see.
And it's to prove a point. It's to prove a point. It's one of those situations that's to prove a point.
Yeah.
Almost like what the Goldmans did with OJ. Like I said, they're not going to ever get any money out of OJ. But the point was to say, we get it on record. We believe you killed our kid.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Please,
I think this is interesting.
Give us a call. 219-885-1371. You think the government killed Malcolm X? I know what I think, but give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. When we get back, we're going to talk about where our $100 billion is going.
Yeah.